Greetings. Welcome to this episode. We are still continuing with our series, The African Adventist Perspective on Christianity. I hope this has been a powerful series that has really opened up your thinking and has challenged your worldview and perhaps helped you to get clarity on certain topics that are not always clearly discussed out there, but at least you picked up something from here. This week, we want to continue with another very topical issue. African feminism in the church. Is this a new challenge for the church or is it an opportunity for the church? And to help me discuss this topic is none other but Pastor Mfundis.
Yes.
Greetings and welcome.
Yeah, that's a hot potato, that one. Let's see how we're going to peel it in.
Whether we're going to calm the fires or we'll add more fire to it.
Yeah, but let's talk about this.
Yes, so the issue of feminism, particularly within the African space, highlights issues around gender inequality. And it's a subject that is seen to be challenging the traditional view of patriarchy and perhaps even the biblical view of the role of women in various aspects of our lives. There are certain inalienable, undisputed facts that women are very pivotal in the Bible, because God's idea to deal with the loneliness of Adam was to give him a helper. God's great idea for redeeming fallen men is epitomized in the relationship called marriage, the bride and the groom. And that theme runs right through to the end in Revelation, where Christ comes as the groom for. And so when we discuss issues around gender, feminism, I guess this episode must address how the church can actually navigate gender dynamics while staying true to our biblical principles. And so maybe to begin this discussion, and I know there are hot potatoes along the way, and I'm sure our viewers will be commenting on these issues and wanting to share with us their perspective, which we may not agree on, but because this is our show, we're going to discuss what we feel is important. How is African feminism challenging our traditional gender roles within the church? Is there a problem there with feminism coming in to say things must change? For example, there's one lady who always insists that every meeting must have a woman's preaching there. We can't have men on the posters. There must be a woman.
Yeah, it's a perspective. And unfortunately, with things have overtaken us, we're talking about feminism and its impact on our Christianity and the roles and our understanding of women and men in terms of equality, and gender roles. But people are now moving into gender fluidity. No, there are no genders. Genders is a social construct. So now, while we are still talking about gender roles, now we've moved to another level where there's no gender. Now, if you feel like you are this, you are that.
That's it?
Yeah, so you say, I'm fighting for women. Who are those? Who are women? Define women for me. I'm fighting for what?
The rights
of rights of who?
Yeah.
Who's a woman? I look like a woman.
Because some women say, I'm a man.
Yeah, I'm a man. So how will you know that I'm fighting for you? I'm fighting for that. When even the definition of a woman depends on...
It's not subjective.
Yeah. So it's a very, very challenging times indeed. And what we see is that while these things may have emanated from the West and the universities, but they are here in the village. They are confronting us. And their heads are nodding or going this way, trying to deal with that. How do we work on this? Now, I think what you also said is very important. I think that's your opening statement, that the Bible is not a book that was written to further the agenda of oppressing women. It's just that people, generally, men, in different cultures and epochs, may have had challenges with women for whatever reason. whether it's because of patriarchy or because of whatever, and then looking for verses that would augment or connect that idea. Then come across the verse that says, wives submit, and they stop right there. They say, you see?
Or women must not speak in the church.
Yeah, women must not speak in the... So it's like during slavery, when you wanted to have slaves, and you're looking for a verse. So you see, even the verse says servants must be submissive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep you as my slaves. You wanted to do that. You are using the verse. But when you read the Bible in its holistic, as a whole, you find that it doesn't really support your view. God has no problem with Africans. He has no problem with
women.
With women. God has no problem with women. Generally, God created Eve. God was not pressured into creating Eve.
Yeah.
He created Eve.
Yeah.
He had no problem. It was not a protest from women that, please, we also want to exist. It was God's idea. So God does not have a problem with women.
Yeah.
And if we have a problem with women, let's not project it to God. Let's not make it God. And that's what we want to do in this session. Even though we may disagree, but what we are going to agree on here, which is very clear.
Yeah.
God has no problem with women.
Yeah, which is why Paul writes to the Galatians, I think it's Galatians 3, verse 28, and says, as far as God is concerned and the salvation of humanity, there's neither male nor female, Greek or Gentile, but we are one in Christ. We are equal before God. But however, when we look at the current society or communities as we see it, women are disproportionately affected. Even when you look at health profiles, any disease that comes disproportionately affects women. When you look at economics, when you look at rights to certain privileges and properties, it's always the girl child, it's always the women who are suffering. And I'm talking in general, globally, such that even when you look at development projects, women are classified as a special population or as a population that's actually at high risk, and therefore they need to be given special attention on specific programs. The whole idea of gender-based violence, it's to try and protect the woman. But when we come to the gospel, salvation is not for the man only. It is for the man as much as it is for the woman. And so as a church, as a Christian movement, I think we should critique our position. We should critique our practices in as far as the involvement or participation of women in the church. Now, the question is, we have a particular teaching on marriage, which we tend to smear everywhere to represent women. And we say the man is the head of the home, and the woman is under the man. So Christ is the head of the man is the head of the woman. And by that we put a hierarchy that says women must not. And then we take that and we apply it to everything that happens in the church. But this was for the home. So we take what was good for the home, what was highlighted for the home, and we bring it to church and say a woman can't be a leader in church. So we then extrapolate it to all other functions within the society. A woman can do this, a woman can that. For example, right now, what are the chances that we'll have a woman as a president of our church? Again, we're delving into those murky waters that we've never agreed on. Should women be elders? Should women be pastors? Should women be ordained? Which is another big blockbuster out there. And so the debate and the verdict is out there. But the question I think I want us to perhaps be definitive on is, are our teachings as a church on marriage out of step with the modern expectations on gender?
Yeah, it's a loaded one. We'll have to comment also on the role of women also in the church. But let's probably look at that in Ephesians 5, and also you get that in Colossians. You also get it in the first book of Peter, chapter 3. the Bible is very clear that wives must submit to their husband. But how we understand that depends on where we are. From where I'm sitting, I wish I could be the one submitting, because I know what that entails, to be the head. Because that statement doesn't end with wife submitting. It goes on to say, you the head, and then says, you like Christ who died for the church. In other words, the dying business is an assignment given to men, not the killing. When we see men killing women, but the Bible is saying we should be dying for them. The submission should not lead to death, but the headship could lead to death.
Your death as a man.
Yeah, your death as a man. In many ways, as a man, sacrificing, protecting, doing this for the family. Remember, if the man is seen as the head, that means the man represents, to a great extent, Christ in the family. Okay. But remember, we're talking ideally here. Because I could ask you, in a family where there's no man, who's the head? It's the woman.
Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, the woman, when there's no man in the family, the man has died or is divorced or whatever, is no longer there. The woman assumes that role. That's why even in our books, Adventist home, that in the absence
of a father,
the woman must take that role of gathering children and be the priest. So what does that tell you? That women can be heads, but where there is a man in the home, that responsibility, that position, that role is given to men. But the woman actually, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
The best leaders are those who can follow. People who follow and are not good leaders are not even able to follow. When I know what leadership entails, I'm able to follow. So he's the leader. And I'm able to recognize that's not my role, that's his role. It is because I'm a leader. Okay. In other words, I don't want us to move away from the fact that women in their constitution have the ability to be leaders. That is why they can submit to the headship of the men. The submission doesn't mean you are useless or inferior. There's nothing you can do. The very fact that you can recognize authority, it means that you are a leader.
Yeah.
Once you know how to work with people, once you say, but that's the elder of the church, I am not. The very fact you say that, you know what it means to be a leader. Yeah. Once you respect leadership, it shows how good a leader you are. Okay, let's go back to that text. That text in Ephesians and the Colossians it doesn't exist in isolation. It doesn't say submit and full stop. It says men must love. Now here's the thing. In an ideal situation, if men must love as Christ has loved, then I'm going to ask you, if the church submits to Christ and Christ has died for the church, who has done more? Is it the church or Christ? Can we say submitting and loving is the same on the same? No. If we submit to Christ because he has died for us, what we are doing can't even be compared to what Christ has done for us.
Yes.
So if we have a scenario or we talk about women submitting, and I'm using this in an ideal situation where the man is a servant leader, exhibiting in his manlyhood the characteristics of Christ, that man who's willing to die. If we had more men like that, do you think we would have a society like this one?
I doubt.
And so what we are saying here is the submission of women to men can only be understood within the context of men loving. Let me give an example. If to submit is for my wife, being an example. When I come from work, you must give me water. Why? Because you're a woman. Why? Because the Bible says you must submit to me. Okay, fine. So the wife will give you water. So what would love look like?
Coming from your side.
Yeah, from your side now. Because remember, love is more than what submission is.
Yes.
So what would love be? So be careful
what you're asking for.
In telling women what they should do, because you should do more than they do. Because if you are loving as Christ loved, so you are saying, I will do more. So I'm expected to do more than just give the water. I must probably provide for that water. I must go look for that water. I must go draw that water from the well. There's a lot that is expected of me.
Yeah.
More than the one who's just giving me water. So what am I trying to say is when God talks about governance in the home, that thing is proper. There should be governance in the home. Because if there's no governance in the home, you won't find it in the church. You won't find it in the community.
Yes.
Children must grow up in a home where there's governance. So it starts with wife submit, husband love, children obey. You see where it's going? Parents teach. There's a governance right there. There's a government here which starts in the family. And if we are going to fail right there and we are not clear as to what we are doing, we are in serious trouble. Right. Oh, by the way, in the leadership in the family, it's 50-50. It's father, male, it's mother, woman.
Yes.
Imagine if it's father. So there's no proper representation in the governance. So children, it would appear they need the mother and they need the father. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Most homes in South Africa are run by women.
True. Lots of fathers are absent.
Yeah. So what does that tell you?
Leadership actually.
Most of the people who are leaders today, who are leaders in the community today,
were raised by mothers.
What does that tell you about mothers?
They have the ability to lead. And but then there's this issue of gender equality. Gender equality meaning we are equals. Men and women, we can do almost anything, anywhere. And there must be equal representation in all the different areas, and not even excluding the church. There must be active inclusion and participation. But we don't see that happening because of some cultural perspectives which are now also infused with biblical text that is buttressing the idea that women must be silent in church and women cannot be compared. But the view is, can we say men and women are equal? Can we truly say we are equal? Or we are equal but we are different? So we can't really be the same. Equality does not mean the same.
Yeah, we are equal, but we have been assigned different roles. You know, if you're the principal of the school and I'm the teacher, we're equal. But your role is that of a principal.
Mine is that of teaching.
Mine is that of teaching. All right? We're equal. You can't say I'm inferior to you because you're a principal.
I guess the thought of being inferior comes from the fact that maybe because you are the manager, you are paid more.
Yeah.
And you're recognized more than I am as a teacher.
But it also links to the role that you're playing. You've got more responsibility. It is not just a status. That no.
Accountability is more.
There's accountability more.
Yeah.
While others are sleeping, you are awake.
Yes.
While others are
sitting, you are standing and running. Standing.
When there's a problem, you have to answer. So there's the responsibility that is attached. I'm not saying there's no status like I'm the principal, but there's a responsibility attached to that. There's also accountability in terms of essence, in terms of substance, in terms of being human. Even parents, children are equal to parents in terms of being human beings. But children must obey the parents. Okay? Not parents obey children. Children must obey parents. So there's equality but different roles. And I think that's where we struggle with. In the Old Testament, for example, you still had priests. Yeah. And we didn't find women priests, at least in the Yahwistic religion. And no one says, no, they are only there, the Levites and the what, where is the representation of women? That was God's system that he was running at the time. And we didn't get the idea that no, there should also be representation. If there's no representation, we're going to be in problem. In the book of Acts, when there was an issue of deacons and
distribution of food.
Distribution, they got 7 guys. What was important is just to get the work going. And I didn't see any, and I'm not making statements to say there shouldn't be. If people want the representation, but all I'm trying to say here is what the Bible is clear on. Okay, this is what as Adventists believe, and this is very important for me to make that point, that in position that needs ordination. As a church, currently, Adventist church, the church does not recognize or promote, maybe it will change one day, the ordination of women into ministry. In other words, women can minister in all the positions that don't need ordination. That's basically the standpoint of the church. But does that mean that women are inferior? Does that mean that women are not important? We cannot even say that, because when Christ appointed the 12 disciples, which all of them were men, were we saying that the women were not important? Of course, we know that there were women also as disciples following Jesus, and the Bible makes that point. But we know that the first were 12. But I don't want us to extract a lot and build a theology. All that I'm trying to say here is that as a church, in positions that demand ordination, and I know we can go on forever. What is ordination? What does ordination mean? And I'm not here to make converts out of this. All I'm trying to say is, as a Seventh Adventist church, as we speak right now, currently, ordination is reserved for males, and all positions that demand ordination, women cannot fill those positions. But do we think that women are inferior as a church? No. Do we think that men are more important than women? No. Women can run ministries. Women, and there's some of their leaders we've had in the church. The vice president was a woman. We've had people leading. They do, but of course, I know this is a sore part. And unfortunately, currently, this is where we stand as a church. But it is not a way of saying that women have got no say and they must be suppressed. And we do try in the church, I must say it, in line with what you are saying, to make sure that women are represented, not because they are women, but because they have a voice, because they've got a perspective. We're not just doing it for a decoration. No, it's not cosmetic. It's because we're missing that voice. You know, I've seen it in a committee that is supposed to receive guests. I've been going around preaching, going to camp meetings. You know when there's no women in a committee. You drive the whole day. You arrive at 5.
Yeah, you're tired.
You preach at 6. Nobody even asks you whether you had lunch. Because then you know that this one is run by men. We need the women touch, and sometimes things fall apart because they are not included there. I'm not saying include them for the sake of the agenda. Include them because of the contribution they can make.
Functionality and efficiency that we need in the ministry.
And you know what the Bible says? It says in 1 Peter, when men mistreat women, God cannot even hear that prayer. But I've yet to hear one that says when women don't submit, God do not hear that prayer. And when the Bible talks about submission, it says this is how women decorate themselves. Women who are holy, women who depend on God, who are not afraid. And then it says when men don't treat their women correctly, then their prayer for forgiveness, for sin, for whatever, it will not be accepted. It shows how God regards women and how we treat them. So we have no theological basis to be cruel and to be demeaning when it comes to these gender issues.
So God has no problem with women, and He has placed them at a very high advantaged position to serve humanity and to become the custodians of future generations. Us as men will never know some of the privileges women have to be mothers and what it means to form a life in the belly and nurture this life until it becomes a man. And that's one of the greatest honors of creating life and nurturing it and growing it. And it is a privilege for fathers and mothers to do it together, because it really makes this child a wholesome child. But then you touched a little bit on the theology, the Adventist theology on males and females, because the Bible says He created men, male and female, and that distinction is biological, right? So we are different biologically, we are different by makeup, and there are clear differences physically we can observe in terms of bone density, muscle density. Our hips are not the same. Ours are narrower because we are created to carry heavy stuff, and we've got the muscle power. And like you said, the thinking of women and the thinking of men is not the same. So when it comes to ministry, that diversity or that complementarity is needed. But let's look, and you've talked about the church not discriminating, but let's look at the Adventist theology around feminism. Can these two exist? And by feminism, I'm looking at the feminism in general, because there's a feminism in the world that we see, and there's perhaps an African feminism that we kind of soften up into the church and we put some spirituality to it. But feminism as an ideology says women's rights are important and women must be represented and women must be part of. So this idea of you saying you have a council of elders of 7 elders with no woman, away with it. Because the world says it will not stand. They will toy. You must put a woman for representation. But can feminism be harmonized with Adventist theology?
You see, maybe not. Because feminism in itself, most feminists, some feminists also have realized that feminism can actually be the very thing that destroys femininity.
Okay.
You could move your feminism to a point where you are actually now destroying being female.
Feminine.
Yeah, to being feminine. And some people have actually acknowledged that you're pushing the war as an ideology to a point where you even saying, it goes to a point of saying we are the same. You can give birth, I can give birth. You know, what you are doing now, you are destroying this femininity, this ability to give birth that men cannot. I know that people who think that they can, that they cannot. And that appreciative, that value we place and appreciate, you do it away because you're pushing an agenda.
So much.
Anything that makes you different, you think it's a disadvantage and you want to destroy it. You want to be like, I want to be like men. We must also be like men. And you know what happens? And I wish and I pray that my wife would not be like me. Because my children don't want another father. then they need their mother to be like the mother. Yeah. If my wife is going to say, I want to be like your father also. And we've seen it. That men were drinking, men were smoking. So no, we also want to be like that. Let's also drink. Why should we not drink? But here's a problem. You drink and then you carry a child in the womb. I don't care. I'm not saying it's right for men not to drink, but the consequences of a woman drinking are far much more than the consequences of a man drinking. And this is what we have seen, this pushing of the envelope to a point where you obliterate any differences. This is where we are, to a point where now we found ourselves with gender liquidity, gender flexibility. It started from there. By the way, as I opened this part, we've reached a stage now that even to talk about feminism, people are going to say, yeah, that's too late, because you can't even define what a female is. There's no gender now. Let alone that gender must be equal. There is no gender. It depends. It's a social construct. It depends what you want, who you are. Nobody can define this and put it up there. It's a big challenge. But the question is that aligned to what God? You know, God had a good reason to create a male and female. And we miss a lot by trying to obliterate those differences. I promise you, we miss a lot. I don't want my wife, as I said earlier on, to be like me. I'm fine with me being like me, but I don't want my wife
to be like me.
I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm okay. And I won't go further with that.
The promise of Joel chapter 2:28 is that your daughters shall prophesy. So is African feminism inherently at odds with the Christian teaching that women must participate? Or are we saying women can still participate, but there are certain privileges that cannot be held back on? And I know the issue of ordination is out there. The issue is still debated. And I know some in the church are already ordaining, especially in the Western world. Pastors and elders, women are being ordained. And even in Africa, we're seeing that also coming in. But when it comes to ministry, am I hearing you well that feminism as an ideology is at odds with our Christian teachings?
When you push it to the extreme, it actually ends up obliterating the differences we spoke about and creating a flux where there's no, we can do, because remember what we stand for, what I advocate is, as much as we're equal, but our roles are different. And I don't want to look at roles as privilege, because then you're going to have those who are underprivileged. Yeah, there are roles that I cannot do for whatever reason.
But when you get to a point where people are clamoring to be in those roles, what is it they're really calling for? Is it not actually also accessing that privilege? Because you don't need to be in that role to be a minister. You can minister in your own lane and be effective at that. without even having to be the one. In fact, here's the point I'm looking at. Remember, the analogy Paul uses is that we are the body of Christ. He's the head. And if you look at the body, the most vital organs of the body are not the ones that are visible. They are the ones that are invisible. The day you see them is the day we know you are dead. Because you can't see my brain. You can't see my lungs. You can't see my heart. You can't see my intestines and all my pancreas and the like. They are caged and protected. All right. How do you know they are functioning? Just look at me. The coordination I have. Then you know. And so sometimes when you look at a certain man, you can tell things are not right at home just by looking at this man, because so for me, I believe there is an inalienable role women must play in ministry. It's not about...
And for me, it starts right there in the family. It's just that has been undermined. Feminism pushed to the extreme has even undermined that. We must go out there and work. We must go out there and also be in industry and travel the whole world. So the father leaves, the mother leaves, and the nanny comes.
Raises the
child. And it creates all kinds of challenges. Let me tell you something. Whether we want to accept it or not, women are better at bringing up children than men.
They do a better job.
There are some men who can do that job. I mean, there are some women who can lift weight more than me. But in general, on average, men have got more muscular power or tone or whatever than women.
Yeah.
And men are, I mean, if you talk about sport, that's why we separate sports. But now we'll get to a point where that's not going to be separated. Imagine if you are a woman and you're fighting in a heavyweight boxing with a man. You're finished.
Yeah.
But there are some women that I can fight with that can kill me. But on average, men are more... Generally speaking.
Yeah.
But I'm going to repeat this. We have lost something that is uniquely feminine, beautiful, that only women can do, bringing up children. That's why they can do that even in our absence. With this single, families that are single-headed, headed by women, doing a beautiful job. Yeah. I'm not saying a better job, but a beautiful job. Imagine if you had a responsible head also assisting. What kind of a society?
It would be excellent.
Women are real. I mean, honestly, I'm personally sitting here. I had a father, was a wonderful man, he did his best, but I can claim and say he did not been my mother. It had not been for my mother. Yeah. But there's going to come a stage when people won't even be able to say that, because they never even saw their mother. Not only did they not see their father, but they didn't see their mother. There's something about mother and children that just connects them. But you were here, part of me. Yes. And while the dad just deposited seed, and the whole connection is cognitive. For the mother, it's biological. It's there. It's there, you were there. And that attaches. When we now begin to fight that to a point where women are comfortable in not nursing and being there for their children. We're going to see smoke. We're going to see fire in this world. I'm telling you. Yeah. You just watch and see. We're going to reach a stage where women have been made to be irrelevant.
Yes.
Where we've been made to be like, it doesn't make a difference. Men can only do that. But all I'm trying to say is, and the principle for me is that the roles, and I know this whole thing, roles can be controversial. Yeah. But we are equal. We're created in the image of God. When God created Adam, it was Adam he created first.
And then Eve.
But when he was creating Eve, Adam was not there. So Eve thinks she was the first one to be created.
Because Adam was there. She was conscious when this guy was coming up and being raised. Eve could see, this guy is coming back to life.
You see?
So I was the first to be conscious.
When Adam was created, there was no Eve. You couldn't see Eve. So he has a right to argue and say, I was here first. Yeah. But when Eve also came, there was no Adam. She came up and God had to actually take him to Adam. So if you can say me, I can tell you I was the first. But all I'm trying to say on a serious note, that both were created by God, and both were created in the image of God.
And so the question then, when I want us to land this on, is how can men and women create a more inclusive church that's united and is diverse and there's no clamoring for roles, but there's more of embracing the mission and the purpose and the function, starting from home. Because I think some of the dysfunction and the clamoring and the toy-toying and the advocating and the, all that language comes from a place of brokenness in the home, all right? Where we have failed to run an Adventist home with modeling. And so we bring that to church. Because I can tell you, Mfundisi, one of the things I've struggled on this ministry, Melville Broadcasting Network, is to bring women to sit where you are and teach and preach. One of the very senior ladies, actually, whom I was hoping would be part of this, told me, we know our place. And I said, where is that place? And she said, it's definitely not where you want to put me. That can better be done by the males. And I really kind of drilled down with her and I said, please explain this to me. She says, no, I know my place is at home, to run that home and make it functional, and to make sure when that son, my daughter, and the men are leaving that space, they can go out there and change the world. But the question that we
could ask, if you are so efficient in teaching your children, why don't you teach the nation?
Exactly. But the blockage, just to complete that storyline, because someone can take it the other way and misconstrue it. The bottom line she was raising was, we can do it, but in this continent called Africa, culture is another dynamic that seems to keep women suppressed. Culturally, a woman can't stand up and do that, though they can. And so because the button stick for culture and tradition is so strong, women feel it's better we just leave this thing like that. But there are other women who are coming up. Like I know a few on social media who would never let the opportunity go before they remind you that this is wrong. We should have women in that poster for that program for teaching. Surely how can you come to women's ministries and you have a lineup of males only? Are there no women who can teach other women? So the question you're asking is definitely a core question. If you can teach at home, why can't you take that and apply it to the world? It's the culture that keeps them.
Okay, we have to admit, also accept, acknowledge our male bias, even in this discussion. That someone said, if you had
two males are sitting here and talking.
If you had brought a lady, you would have brought a balance. Now you're talking about us without us.
Yes.
But this is not the only thing we're talking about. We've spoken about
many other things. Yeah, we're just passing by.
And
this
maybe
one.
Next time you'll have a woman here and you'll talk about
counter argue,
and have males also issues that is. But we must accept that even some of the statements we make may make other people feel like, you see, we must accept the fact that we are limited even in our language, even in expressing our language. But in case we are misunderstood, we want to make it very clear that God has no problem with women. And the church now, I'm trying to understand God's operation. I'm talking about the Adventist church and maybe other churches. At the moment, those positions that require ordination are actually occupied by men. Those that.
Would you want to break it down? Why ordination is exclusively for males? What's the theology and the thinking around it? I'm not putting you on the spot on this one. But someone needs to understand it.
Not that they don't understand. So it's not like they don't understand. And in the next 3 minutes, I'm not going to make somebody
understand something.
Books have been written on this issue. So I'm not going to make, it's not like, I'm hearing that for the first time. No, he has got a position. Do you think in 3 minutes I'm going to destroy that position? All I'm trying to say here is, and I even said that, even unpacking the whole understanding of ordination is another story.
Yeah.
We are not running this podcast to find a way of critiquing the church and say the church is wrong. I'm the leader in the church.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is, at this point, when it comes to ordination, positions that demand ordination, the Seventh Adventist Church doesn't therefore ordain women. I know some may be in other areas, but officially we've taken a position. It could be wrong. It could be right, but it is the position that the church doesn't ordain women. And as such, if there's a role that needs ordination, if women cannot be ordained, then that woman will not be able to fill in that position.
I guess the position the church is taking, just to understand you, it's based on biblical precedents that we've never had a woman ordained in the Bible. And therefore, we don't want to do something that the Bible is silent on because of whatever reason. We would be actually going beyond what perhaps has been made clear by God. And unless maybe God sends a prophet or whoever to say, no, it has changed. And by the way, we must also be very sensitive to say this, knowing that one of our greatest expositor of truth in this church was a woman.
Oh, by the way, I was going to mention that because remember you said Joel says your women and
your daughters shall prophesy.
I'm just looking at the text now, Acts 21 verse 10, it says, verse 9 says, now this man had 4 virgin daughters who prophesied.
Philip, yeah.
This is now in the
New Testament.
So it would be amiss of us to say that prophets, as far as the Bible is concerned, whenever prophets through ordination, we have to be ordained to be a prophet to speak. And so we had these ladies, but when it comes to apostles, that's what the Bible make a distinction.
Yes,
that was something that was reserved for men for whatever reason that God might, and we cannot get into it now.
Yeah,
because we want to differ or agree. But prophets and deacons and whatever people worked and function. And I know the whole issue of eldership also comes in here, creates all kinds of challenges. But as a blanket statement, I would say those positions that require ordination, and with a statement that ordination is reserved for men at the moment in the Adventist church, then that would exclude women. Yeah. But there's nothing that says women are inferior. We don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, they can still be called by God to the highest office of being a prophet.
They can be prophet. They function as prophet. They can teach. They can, like I said, when in the absence of the men, they can do the very function. It's not because they cannot do that.
Yeah,
there's order in God. Sometimes that order is needed, and especially in the whole concept and system of governance. Yeah. So in the absence of the man who's supposed to act as the priest, the woman assumes that responsibility and she runs the family, and they're doing that work.
And when we say they must submit, it's not the person that is submitting, it's the authority that the person has. Yeah. So women have authority, and this is what they are submitting to the men. Not that they don't have authority.
And they're not submitting their individuality.
Yes.
So that one, they answer to God, not to men. So God has given them responsibility. So in their submission, they don't lose they're not to have their individuality merged or submerged to that of the men, to a point where, no, if you say I must not worship God, it's okay because you're the men. There are instances where they will say, no, I'm not going to do that because I report to God.
Exactly.
So it's women who are holy, who are not afraid, who have a responsibility, and they have to answer to God.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Mfundisi, for this discussion. I want you to give us your closing remarks. But I think what I hear from this discussion is that feminism as an ideology is like, it doesn't really go hand in glove with Adventist theology. There are certain aspects that are actually not in line with biblical text. But we are also saying, and I'm hearing you saying, women are not excluded in the work and the ministry of the church and the kingdom of God. In fact, Jesus uses the example of a husband and a wife, a bride and a groom, to exemplify the relationship he has with his church. And so that relationship, which is visible, actually shows us the invisible kingdom of God, in that women play a very critical role. And they were created not as an afterthought, but as God's idea and a blessing to men. And therefore, we shouldn't alienate them, but we should create an inclusive society. But give me your closing remarks and your take-home message.
All movements, all ideologies pushed to the extreme will actually militate against the Bible. Communism, it's good to say let's share, but it can push to the point where the human being, the individual, does not exist and he has no rights. Feminism, I mean, we talk about women's rights, fine, we talk about equality, those are good, but it can be pushed to a point where it actually destroys femininity. It actually obliterates the differences and the gender differences. That's what I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
So as much as it may have good things, but it can, and that's why we call it ism. It is that pushing that very agenda to a point where now it's a protest, it's anger, it's fury, it's undermining, it's fighting, and it destroys the whole thing. Imagine if you've got a wife who keeps fighting every day to prove a point, that marriage is in trouble.
Yeah, it will end. We will walk away from it. Thank you so much, Mfundisi. And to our viewers, thank you so much. That's all we had for you on this one. Do let us know. I know we were skating on thin ice on some of these issues, and I know you've got a perspective on this. Why don't you share it? Let's enrich each other and grow together. God bless you, and see you on the next episode. We will be talking about globalism. Our interconnectedness as a globe. Is that a threat to African Christianity? God bless you.